Today we're going to talk about feeling nervous, worried, or anxious about things. It's something that's wired into our brain for our survival, but most of the time nowadays it has nothing to do with survival and it's just kind of unpleasant. But remember, our brains have been this way for thousands of years. And for a long time, it was important to have people feel anxious about things because, you could get eaten by a lion or something. And of course, nowadays, most of us are not in danger of being eaten by a lion, but our body can react as if we are in danger. In fact, we have two different parts of our brain that work very differently. There's our survival brain, and then there's our smart brain. Our survival brain has been the same way for thousands of years, and its job is to make sure that you don't get eaten by a lion. And it doesn't really understand modern life. It doesn't understand things like recitals or speeches or tests. All it understands is lions and tigers and bears. And so if you're feeling worried about something, your survival brain thinks, well, it must be a lion or a tiger or a bear. Thankfully, our smart brain understands that the world has changed a lot. So in our brain, we have our frontal lobe that's here in front, but then deep inside, we have our survival brain. It's really deep in there because it's a very basic part of being a living creature who survives. Deep inside there in our brain is that survival brain that all it knows is I'm in danger and I have three choices: fight, flight, or freeze. So fighting is fighting with someone. That could be a lion or a tiger. It could be your parents or your siblings or somebody else. Flight means running away, trying to get out of the situation. When it's a lion, that would be running away from the lion. In real life, that might be trying to avoid a situation that stresses us out. The third option is freeze. That means hiding or playing dead if you're with a lion. Or in real life, it means kind of freezing up and not knowing what to say, feeling kind of paralyzed, and not running away from the situation exactly, but not really being able to deal with it effectively either. So fight, flight, and freeze can be useful for surviving, a lion. But when you're in a situation like a performance or a test, then those can get in the way of you being able to do what you need to do. Because think for a minute, if you had a lion right in front of you, would your brain be focused on remembering your math facts or thinking about things in history or playing your instrument really well? No, of course not. It'd be focused on the fact the lion is about to eat you. And so if your survival brain is in charge, when you're trying to do something that needs your smart brain to be in charge, it can be a lot harder to do the thing. So what we want to do is we want to help our survival brain know that we are not actually in danger of being eaten by a lion. The problem is our survival brain isn't very smart by definition. So our survival brain needs to learn that we are safe in some different ways than would be easy and convenient. Unfortunately, our survival brain isn't very smart. That's the whole thing. It's the other brain from our smart brain, right? And it's really important if we're in a dangerous situation. If you're in the middle of the street and a car is coming towards you, it is not a good time to stand there and think, I don't know. Should I get out of the street? Should I go to the other side? Should I come to this side? I don't know. I was kind of going that way. I don't know if I should go back the other way. Not a good time to try to figure it out, right? We want our survival brain to kick in and get us out of that street. But in a lot of the situations where our survival brain is taking charge, it's not a good one to be in charge, because if we're trying to take a test or play an instrument or give a speech, we need our smart brain to be able to do its job. And our survival brain needs to not be the one in charge. So what we need to do is be able to teach our survival brain that this is not a survival situation. There is no lion trying to eat us. The first thing to do is to just say, oh, this is my survival brain. These are symptoms of my survival brain being in charge. So think about if you were running away from a lion, what are some things your body would do? Your heart would beat faster. You'd start breathing faster. Your blood flow would change. It would move away from your digestive system and out into your arms and legs so that you could run and fight better. What that can mean is that when you're nervous about something, you can get a tummy ache, or your hands and feet can feel numb or swollen. Sometimes you can feel tingly. There's a lot of different feelings that people get as part of feeling nervous or anxious, and they all have to do with our survival brain taking over from our smart brain. So we need to flip that the other way. So there's lots of different ways of doing that. But the first thing is noticing, oh, I'm breathing faster, my heart's beating, I'm getting kind of emotional. If you're getting angry at people, you're saying rude things that maybe you wouldn't normally say, or you're not able to focus on things, all of those are signs that your survival brain is the one in charge right now. So when you notice that, say it out loud or in your head. I like saying it out loud. Oh, this is my survival brain. Because then I can realize, like, this isn't me, the smart brain. This is me, the survival brain. And I need to switch over to the other mode. So then the next thing is teaching our survival brain that we're safe. Like I said, the difficulty is our survival brain isn't very smart. It knows that if we repeat something over and over again, it's important. And it knows that if we have a lot of emotions about something, it's important. But it doesn't understand explanations. And so if we try to explain to our survival brain that now is not a good time to do this, I really need to be able to focus, our survival brain doesn't understand that. What we need to do instead is show our survival brain that we're okay. There's lots of different ways of doing that. I like to think about the different ways our body is acting in fight, flight, or freeze and do the opposite. So for example, if getting a hug helps you, well, that's because in fight, flight, or freeze, hugging is not really a thing. It doesn't really help you when a lion's going to eat you to go cuddle up with someone and have a nice hug. Wrapping up in a warm blanket, holding a pet, stroking a stuffed animal, all of those are things you would not be doing if a lion were chasing you. And so those are all things that tell your survival brain, hey, this is not a survival situation. Look at me. I'm sitting here hugging my mom. I'm sitting here petting my dog. I'm sitting here holding my stuffed animal. So all of those are ways of getting our survival brain to know. Another thing we can do is take slow, deep breaths. Now this one's tricky because some people, myself included, I used to be a big worrier. I am not anymore, but it's not because I just magically stopped worrying. It's because I learned about how the body works and I started training my brain to worry less. And what used to happen is people would say to take deep breaths and I'd go, did that help at all? No, did not help at all. So what you have to do if you're going to take a deep breath is make sure that it's the kind of deep breath you take when you're very relaxed, not the kind of deep breath you take when you're running away from a lion. So there's different ways of doing that. My two favorite ways are humming and pretending I'm blowing out bubbles. So humming would be right through your nose. Only if I'm stressed out, it's too hard to do a tune. I'll just go. Some people worry that sounds like meditation and they don't want to do that, but I'm just kind of like not very smart at remembering a tune when I'm stressed. But you can also do, that also gets your smart brain working because your survival brain doesn't know how to sing, doesn't know tunes, doesn't know words. So if you start humming a song that you know, I don't care if it's Baby Shark or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star or a classical piece, just something that doesn't stress you out. That's going to help your smart brain get in charge and your survival brain kind of fade into the background. Another thing I like to do is pretend I'm blowing bubbles. So imagine I have a bubble wand here. What that does is it makes you take slow, long breaths out. So you have to breathe in quick and then slow out. There's a lot of other ways to be able to do it. Some people imagine just like blowing up a giant bubblegum bubble. Some people imagine blowing out birthday candles. So there's different ways of doing that. Some people like tracing their fingers. So they'll go up and down each finger as they breathe in and out and in and out. Besides breathing, that also helps you focus on something. And again, your survival brain's not really good at focusing on stuff unless it's a lion that's about to eat you. And so what that does is it lets your survival brain know, hey, this is not a survival situation. I'm focusing on something. That same way, being able to focus on reality around you also helps your survival brain know that you're safe. You may have heard of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, and if not, well, I'm about to tell it to you. So it's 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Now, depending on your situation, you can switch those around because you may be in a situation where there's more things you can smell or more things you can taste. I do it in that order because I usually don't have a whole lot I can taste around me. But that's something that you can do how it works for you. So 5 things I can see. I can see my models up on my shelf. I can see the tiara that my friend Hannah gave me that stays on my skull most of the time. I can see the doll that I use for demonstrating how to examine people. I can see out the window onto my patio. I may have gone over 5, but I can see a lot of things from where I am. And it helps me remember that what's around me is not a lion that's about to eat me. So 4 things that I can hear. I can hear the squirrels outside. I can hear my fan blowing that's keeping our house cool. I can faintly hear my kids in another room. I can hear my washing machine going. Then things that I can feel the chair under my bottom. I can feel my shirt kind of rubbing against my neck here. I can feel my hair behind my ears. I can feel my clothes around my ankles. I can feel my shoes under my feet. Actually, I'm wearing sandals, so I can feel the straps over the top of my feet too. Things that I can smell. Well, to be honest, I can't smell anything right now because my allergies are really bad. But if I could, I would probably smell around me things like the tea that I have here next to me that I can drink. I might smell the dust in my office because I don't dust all these models all the time. I might smell some of the flower smell coming from in from outside because I'm recording this right now in the spring when there's roses, there's lilacs. So the air outside smells really good right now. Things that I can taste. I might be able to taste my mouth rinse or my toothpaste. I might be able to taste the tea that I just drank, even pure water. If you're just drinking regular drinking water, has some taste to it. It tastes like water. So any of those are things that can help me be grounded in where I am right now. All right, so once you've done some things that help you be grounded in reality, and once you've done some things that tell your brain that you are not in survival mode, then you can start moving on to focusing on what you need to focus on. Now, sometimes I need to kind of transition. Like I can't just jump right into the scary thing because I've been in survival brain. And so switching right over to my smart brain might not work so well. So oftentimes, like if I need to take a test, I might do a quick little puzzle. Or if I need to do a performance or a speech, I might focus on something a little bit easier first, like thinking through the words to a poem that I like. Or sometimes I'll just have like a piece of apple or something because eating a snack is another way that tells my body I'm okay. Then I can go ahead and try again on the thing that I'm doing. But here's the really important part. Talk to yourself kindly. We don't say mean things to people that we love when we're trying to help them. But sometimes we say mean or scary things to ourselves and we don't realize it. So if you're saying in your head, this is going to be horrible, this is going to be awful, or I'm going to do really badly, or people are going to make fun of me, or any of those kinds of things, well, that's just going to get you all stressed out again. And that's not very helpful. Instead, talk to yourself the way you would talk to someone that you loved, someone that you cared about, a friend or a family member, because in that same exact kind of situation, you wouldn't talk to them like that because that isn't actually true. They actually aren't going to do awfully. They actually aren't going to be made fun of. Whatever the situation is, you know that that's not true. What you're doing is what's called catastrophizing. That means thinking of the worst possible thing that could happen and focusing on that. And that's not really a highly likely thing. So what you can do instead is you can come up with what would you say to somebody else, because we're usually better at being kind and honest and realistic with other people. So you could say things like, I know you're nervous, but you've spent a long time preparing for this and you're ready for it. Or, the other people there understand. It's just a bunch of other kids and parents like us, and they know what's going on and they're very supportive. Sometimes it helps me to come up with the best and worst case scenario too and realize that it's still okay. Sometimes that stresses me out more. So if it's going to stress you out more, don't do that. But sometimes I'll come up with, okay, so the worst thing that can happen is they don't like my idea. and then I can go do something else. Well, that wasn't a big deal, right? So in a particular situation, I might think of the worst possible thing that could happen. So for example, maybe I meet someone and they don't like me. Well, then I can tell myself, well, that person doesn't like me, but I have a lot of friends and family who love me. And it doesn't really matter what that one person thinks because I'm never going to see them again anyway. And so if I think about the fact that the worst case scenario is totally fine and not a big deal, then it can help me if I start catastrophizing again. So if my survival brain says, what if they don't like you? Then I can be like, I've already thought this through and I'll be fine. Because here's the thing, our survival brain is afraid that if someone doesn't like us, that we're going to get thrown out of the group of humans out into the forest or the jungle or the desert. And you know what happens to a human by themselves in the forest, right? Nothing good. Humans are kind of squishy and we don't have claws. We don't have teeth. We can't fly away. We don't have a shell. We don't run very fast. So what we really have is each other. And that's why our survival brain reacts in a survival way in things that don't really make sense sometimes, because doing badly on a test or doing badly in a performance feels like a survival issue, because if we don't do our absolute best, maybe we could be thrown into the desert and die, which is not going to happen. And so our survival brain needs to be taught that that's not true. And the other way we can do that is by changing how we think about it, how we talk to ourselves about it, so that we're not feeding those kinds of stories to our survival brain. So what I've included for you is a 2-column technique. It's something that I use with my kids, and you can do on just a piece of paper, or you can get the download that has the columns there and some ideas for how to use it. But what you want to do is in one column, write your negative thoughts, your automatic negative thoughts, which by the way, A-N-T, automatic negative thoughts. That's ants. So we call them ants. We write down our ants and then we squash our ants, because our ants are not the truth. They're just ants. They're just creepy crawlies around. And instead, what we need to do is speak kindly to ourselves and talk to ourselves in a loving and accurate way, the way we talk to someone we cared about. Because you know what? You are a special and important person, and you deserve to be treated well. And you deserve to be treated well not just by other people, but also by yourself. And so that's the last step before you do the thing you need to do. And hopefully you're now fully in your frontal lobe, in your smart brain up here. Sometimes though, our survival brain is still like, hey, I'm still worried about stuff. Hey, there's still stuff going on. But when we feel that happening, we can remind ourselves, I've already decided that it's not a big deal, or I've already decided that people are helpful and kind, or I've already decided that this is going to be fine, or I've already decided that even if the worst thing that happens, I'm not going to get eaten by a lion by it. And so it's okay. So my survival brain can go to sleep, take a little break, relax. You can use your different calming techniques. And then the other really cool thing you can do is once you've done the thing, don't just forget about the fact you did the thing. Tell yourself about it. Think about the fact that, wow, I was really upset about this and it turned out just fine. And I'm totally fine right now. And here I am with my family at home, the end. And that way, the next time something happens that stresses you out, you can tell yourself like, oh, I've done other things that were hard and it was okay. When I was in medical school, I really struggled with anatomy. In fact, I failed every test in anatomy in medical school. I had actually never taken anatomy and physiology before, and that's why it's so important to me that I teach you anatomy and physiology in a way that makes sense. But I didn't have that, so it was really hard. I only passed my anatomy physiology class in medical school because I was really good at the lab portion of it. I'm really good with hands-on stuff. Thankfully, later on, once I started using anatomy and physiology, I learned it really well because it made sense to me once I actually did something with it. But in the class, I was just memorizing. So it was an awful experience. We had 4-hour tests, so it would go all afternoon. So I would know that I was going to go in there, take a 4-hour test, and fail every single time. It was awful. Now, I just barely failed, which is why I still passed the class. If I'd really, really failed, I wouldn't have passed the class. Also, failing in medical school is still actually doing pretty well because they make you do really well to be a doctor. So I still did what in other places would have been passing. Just in medical school, they fail you at much higher levels. So I knew I was going to go in there, spend 4 hours being utterly miserable, taking a test on something that I really struggled with, that I'd studied really hard for and did not make any sense to me because it was a lot of memorization. And then I was going to fail. And that was just an awful feeling. But the way I got through it is every time I would tell myself, I get to go home at the end of this. No matter what happens, they aren't going to hold me hostage. I'm not going to get eaten by a lion. I get to go home to my husband. I get to go home to my cats. I'm going to go home and eat a dish of chocolate ice cream. I'm going to go home and curl up in my bed and watch a movie that I like or read a book, listen to music. I'm going to knit. I'm going to color. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to have a life after this. This is just 4 hours and I will survive it. And that really helped me each time I was in that situation. So if after the situation, hopefully you're not ever in that miserable a situation, but if you are, you can tell yourself, I'm going to get through this. And on the other side of it, I'm going to go back to my normal life and it's okay. And that's helped me get through a lot worse things too. So it was a good skill to learn. And hopefully it'll help you. Hopefully you never have worse things. But if you do, if you've trained your brain to be able to cope with the things you're dealing with now, you're going to be fine whatever life throws at you because you're going to have that mental strength and resilience. Because there's another part of that that's really important to remember. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. Being brave means being scared and doing what you need to do anyways. If you aren't scared, that's not being brave. That's just not even caring. That's doing the thing. Being brave can only happen if you're scared of something. So what that means is that if you're someone who's scared or worried or nervous, then you are an extremely brave person and you have a lot of courage and you're good at going into those situations and doing what you need to do. And I'm very proud of you. It's going to get easier as you get older, I promise. So hang in there, use the skills we talked about, and keep telling yourself that you are doing a great job and you deserve people to be kind to you, including yourself.